Hello friends, I have to tell you all about C60 Purple Power. Since I started using C60, which may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man, I feel amazing, and you should too. I have more energy, I sleep better, and I've lost over 30 pounds. But please go check it out for yourself. It has so many amazing benefits. Just click the link in the description or visit c60purplepower.com and use coupon code KNOWLEDGE10 to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. That's C60 Purple Power. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today, we have some presenters that will be at Forbidden Knowledge News Con 2021. It's going to be April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th this year. They're going to be talking a little bit about what they will be presenting. And this is going to be an online conference. You can watch it from the comfort of your home. You don't even have to get dressed. You can just sit in your bed, watch these 12 amazing presenters present extraordinary information that you've never heard before. You really will not want to miss this. This is going to be amazing. Before I bring them on, I just need to tell you to subscribe on Forbidden Knowledge News on LBRY TV. It's our official backup channel. We also have a brand new show called Beyond Classified. It's exclusively on Rokfin. Check that out. The links are in the description. Also, last month, our podcast provider cut off our monetization because of an error on their end. So we are out of an entire month of podcast revenue. I really hate asking for donations, but if you would like to help us out this month, those links are also in the description. Now, today, we have an amazing panel that will be presenting at Forbidden Knowledge NewsCon. It's not everybody. We're still short a few presenters. We got one more joining us right now, Jared Murphy. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and introduce everybody and ask you about what you're going to be presenting this year. Let's get Jared on first before we... Jared, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. All right, we just got started here. Like I was telling everyone else, I'm just going to go around and ask everybody what they're going to be presenting at this year's conference. Are you doing video today, Jared?
I am, but you know what? Thanks for reminding me that it's not on.
All right, thank you. There we are. All right, so welcome everyone. I know Micah Dank, he is on the top right. He has to leave early today. Let me just go around and introduce everybody. That's Micah Dank on the top right. On the top left, we have Jim Willis. Then we have Ross Ben right below him. Karen Holton in the middle there. We got Cory Hughes on the right. And then at the bottom left, we've got Sonia Barrett in the middle, Dean Henderson, and the bottom right, Jared Murphy. We have only a couple of other presenters that we're missing that are going to be at the conference that weren't able to make it here today. But hopefully they're going to be jumping on anytime now. But let's go ahead and get started with this. Each of you guys has an amazing presentation. It's all going to be interactive, so the audience will also be able to ask you questions at the end of the presentation about anything they have. You'll be able to present slides. If you have any slides today, go ahead and screen share. I pulled up the ability there. So let's start with you, Micah Dank. What do you have for us on Forbidden Knowledge NewsCon 2021?
No problem. So can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, you see it says astrotheology in the Bible?
We do.
Astrotheology, the best way to describe it is it's the myth and the mythology of the zodiac as in the picture below. In the same way that the Greeks and the Romans had their own myths and legends and flood stories like everyone has, astrotheology basically speaks about the zodiac. And there's many, many deep connections in the Bible too, which a lot of people don't know. During my presentation, I'm going to be going through the 12 signs of the zodiac and explaining exactly what to look for. Exactly. So when a key word comes up in the Bible, you'll know they're referencing to this, and I'll make other connections to that too. But basically, if you were to ask somebody what the oldest writing would be, they would most definitely say something like the Sumerians or the Babylonians or even the writings of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, or what have you. But actually, astrotheology goes back 40,000 years to the Lascaux Caves. Now, the Lascaux Caves are some caves that they found in France. And when they went into them, deep into them, what they found was there was a wall that all these kind of drawings like you see here of bulls, of lions, of horses. And in astrology, the bull is Taurus, the lion is Leo, the horse is the horse with the rod of Sagittarius. These were all carved onto the walls. And what basically happened was they carbon dated this. Now, for a lot of people who say carbon dating is inaccurate, that's only kind of half true. Carbon dating is actually very accurate, up to 50,000 years. Beyond that, it's not so much. When you get into the hundreds of thousands or the millions of years, it's not so accurate. But this is 40,000 years old. So they brought in an astronomer with the computer, because we have the technology with computers now to do this. They rewound the sky back 40,000 years. And what they found was where all these animals were located, that's where they corresponded in the sky in the zodiac. So they had rams, they had horses, they had bulls, everything matched up. So we have known about the zodiac for at least 40,000 years that I can track. And in the Bible, it translates into certain questions. For example, how Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, and why his birthday was on December 25th. People will argue the birthday, of course, but the birthday of Christ, nonetheless, is celebrated on December 25th, as was with Dionysus, as was with Horus, as was with many other things. Now, there is a documentary out there called Zeitgeist that came out that briefly went into this kind of stuff. What I do is different than that, and it's a little bit similar, but it's very different. But basically, we're going to be able to answer all these questions, and we're going to be able to go through all the zodiac, 12 zodiac signs. And by the time I'm done with this, I'm going to go in through some decodings of some Old Testament and New Testament verses that are just basically encoded astrology. I'm going to show you who doesn't want you to know that the astrology is real. And that's pretty much about it.
Very cool. Now, Mikey, I know you're going to be coming on in April to be discussing what is the new book that we're going to be talking about.
Was it the Book of Enoch?
I think that was Book of Enoch, and then we had another one after that that we would be talking about.
Well, I've decoded the Book of Enoch. I've decoded the Book of Revelation. I've decoded the Book of Matthew.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Enoch show. I think that's going to be a very fascinating one.
That's going to be with astrotheology too. So you have to understand, is all the Gnostic texts, the texts that didn't actually make it into the Bible, which are still, some of them are in the Ethiopian Bible. The Book of Enoch is still in the Ethiopian Bible. All of them are astrotheological books. And my contention with the Book of Enoch is the reason that it wasn't included in the regular canon of the New Testament was, or the Old Testament even, was that it openly talks about astrology, openly, whereas these Gospels and such talk about it hidden. It's hidden information that you have to decode.
Very cool. Well, Micah, thank you for talking about this. We're very much looking forward to your presentation. And I will see you in a couple of weeks whenever you come back on the show.
Yeah, I got you. Thanks, Chris. Take care, guys. Take care, everyone.
All right. Let's go to Sonia. I know, Sonia, you actually have to get going soon. You have another radio obligation. So what are you going to have for us? I know it's still in the works, but whatever you can tell us.
Well, it is still in the works, to be honest with you. But I think that my work in general typically explores the technology of reality, the technology of creation. And I will probably focus, maybe not completely, but quite a bit also on the marketing of death at this time, because that's where we are. Why is death being so heavily marketed at this time? And basically how it all relates, I think, to the idea of freedom, which is something that everybody's constantly looking for. And what does that actually mean for human beings? That's a really big piece, is we're looking for this freedom, but it's so layered. There's so many layers in this system, this simulation, this matrix, this technology, that I think we really need to begin to understand more about, just the system and our own network, being networked into this invisible structure. Why the governing forces actually are promoting death, why no matter what we do and what we explore, in whether it be our spiritual movement or research or whatever, why is it there's that one thing that everybody gets stuck on? There is definitely some major engineering, major programming that's in there that we really need to start looking at, and looking at everything more, I think, from a place of technology, not technology as we currently understand it, because our level of technology is very, very minuscule, but yet it's a replication of something much bigger. But we need to start leaving this kindergarten state and moving into greater levels of understanding how that all works. So that's what basically has come to me, with more of what I will discuss and explore.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that's a really important topic, especially to be talked about right now. When you say, fear being spread, that's all you see when you turn on the TV. And it's along
That's the
with
virus.
everything.
That's the virus. It's not COVID. It's fear is the actual
Right.
virus.
Yes, you're exactly right.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
and I think that bringing awareness of that to people, and trying to help them along during these times to alleviate this fear and get them past looking at some of the things that aren't going to lead them down the right path, and just kind of focus on more important things in life that that'll get them through this, and that we really should be focusing on. I think that's really great.
Right. Absolutely. And I just want to throw in one more thing for anybody who's listening, with what I just said and what you just said. What we want to look at is, why does the fear work so well? And of course, for some people who have seen me on Gaia and George Nuri, and done some of those interviews, I think people really need to be reminded about the core human fear. The core human fear is death, is dying, is not existing. And that's a big part of why it is constantly, why health is being used right now as a challenge, because nobody wants to leave here. Everybody is kind of scared. So we need to understand that on a very, very deep level, and not just a topical level where it's, lip service, but we need to unlock ourselves, crack the code to the human being. So
Excellent.
that's where we're going to be going with this.
Awesome. Well, we're very much looking forward to that. Sonia, thank you for coming on,
Thank
taking the time
you.
to talk about it, and we'll
All
be
right.
seeing you then.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And I'll be seeing you and hearing all the wonderful stuff that everybody has to say. Thank you. All right, bye.
All right.
Mhm.
All right. Let's go ahead and start down the line at the top left here with Jim. Jim Willis, welcome. How are you doing? What are you going to be presenting for us on the Forbidden Knowledge News Con?
I'm already excited because both Sonia and Micah and I we will all kind of not overlap, but I think build on one another. I had a very good friend whose father died 2 months before he was born, and as a result, growing up without a father, with that great part in his life that was missing. He had to come up with an idea of his father. He had to develop his own story. And he got the story from other people. These other people would tell him, for instance, stories about his father. And from this, he built this biography. But later in life, when his mother was going to move from the home where he was born and raised, he was going to help her move. He went up into the attic and he discovered there a series of his father's journals that nobody, not even his mother, realized his father was keeping. And from these journals, from the actual stories that his father told, he was able to put together a totally different picture of this man, a totally introspective picture, of a very more real picture. But he had a problem in that the story he had lived with his whole life was so real to him that he had trouble putting in the actual story as it came from the pen of his father. There was a hidden history that was lost to him, in other words. Now, the trouble is, as he put this new story together from his father, he discovered a man that these other people didn't know. And so the story that he had discovered himself did not agree with the story that he'd been told by others who were on the outside. And he had a hard time putting this in. Now, I think of this story, this is going to really undergird what I'm talking about, because I believe that we have a hidden history that is hidden from us, and I like to call it by the conspiracy of silence. Now, this comes from the fact that I used to be a college professor, and as most college professors would do, I would teach in my particular realm. Was my particular subject was comparative religion and world religions and mythology. And so as I began to study these things, I found it very easy year after year. Follow the textbooks. The textbooks have it all out there. And you have your lesson plans and you have your things. The trouble is, what happens when we discover new information about ourselves that doesn't agree with the standard story? It's very difficult to stand up in front of a class of students, and especially your old students, and say, sorry, I was wrong. And because of the pride thing and the hubris thing and the ego thing, it's very easy just to leave out the new information. Just go with the comfortable old. You can even doubt it. And that's what I call the conspiracy of silence. And I've discovered that this conspiracy of silence is hiding our history in so many fields, not only in the field of religion, which was my field, but also the field of archaeology. A classic example of Clovis, for instance, here in America. For 100 years, Clovis first held on as being the big theory, the central story of the peopling of America. Now Clovis first is in shreds, but you'll hardly ever find anybody who will say that. It still is very difficult if you go against this grain and begin to introduce the whole idea of the conspiracy of silence and break the mold, so to speak. It's very difficult to find a job to teaching. It's very difficult to find money for research. It's very difficult to continue your way. I found the same thing, of course, in science, especially in physics nowadays and in the new physics. It's very difficult to introduce brand new ideas that break the mold. It's so much more easy just to stay with the status quo, and the conspiracy of silence again rears its ugly head. The same thing, of course, is true in so many different forms in science and in religion, archaeology, and all these different. We all form these clubs that want to keep the status quo going, and it's very difficult to break through that. Well, we're going to try to break through that. And in the time we have at the conference, we're not going to be able to cover all of these different fields. So what I'm going to do is to be able to talk about how the conspiracy of silence works in the field of religion. And I've picked the field of religion for two purposes, for two reasons. Number one, it's my field that I've specialized in for the last 50 years, but also it's the field that is so important today because the lack of understanding about how religions came about is literally causing wars today. We find Sunni against Shiite. We find Jews against Muslims. We find Muslims against Buddhists. Even in our own capital, we have people destroying the Capitol in the name of the Prince of Peace, holding up signs that talked about Jesus wanting them to be there and restoring the true America and all this kind of stuff. And so I want to delve into this whole idea of religion, just to use that as an example. Very interesting to hear what Micah has to say, for instance, because the book that will come out just before this conference begins is my latest book called Censoring God, and it's about the books that didn't make the Bible, and Enoch, of course, is one of those books. So I think for those who are interested in this kind of subject, we're going to have a lot of material throughout this whole conference, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to try to present, in other words, a hidden history that has been hidden by what I call the conspiracy of silence. Looking forward to it. I really am, Chris.
Yes, I am too. And we're also going to have a little roundtable panel discussion with you, myself, and Jared. I'm going to whip up a few questions and have the audience also ask you a few questions, not only about your presentations, but hidden history in general. And we're going to have a good time with that as well.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Very much. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go to the right to Ross Ben. Ross, welcome. How are you doing?
Thankful. How are y'all today?
We're very good, very good. So what do you got for us for your presentation?
All right. Well, I'm sure many recall late 2020, an Israeli security officer came out and disclosed that there's this galactic federation, and he kind of put a spin on it to say that the Israeli U.S. government had been, coordinating with them. And, the reason why disclosure hadn't occurred is because the Galactic Federation said humanity wasn't ready. And so I just want to bring like a counter perspective to that, to say that, you know what, the Galactic Federation has been attempting to actually circumvent, like, I guess ones you would say, they say they're representing humanity, they're putting themselves as the ones who speak for the collective. And they've been attempting to speak directly to the collective in the form of a universal, omniversal language that uses sacred geometry and divine mathematics, which is about as omniversal of a cipher as you could get, and have been attempting to bring about full disclosure in what we would call the crop circles, and that really look at this phenomena of crop circles from that perspective and explore what they call, at least, I'm going to start with what they call the three most important crop circles ever. Two of them being the Chilbolton crop circles, which are really significant because they did not really use sacred geometry in their message. It was symbology more relative to our human experience, So that's really going to be my focus, and hearing what others are speaking on, I will tie it into, I guess, what we call angelology, that the ones who, if we were to look into angelology and say, well, who might these beings be that are responsible for these crop circles? They would be the Aphanim. That is the order of the angels mentioned in the book of Enoch. One of three that at least made the translation into English that I'm aware of, with the cherubim, and Aphanim being the three key ones, So I'll build that in too to kind of synchronize with what I hear others are planning to share. And that, that's really going to be my focus.
That's going to be awesome. Now, I'd like to get your take on why do you think all of a sudden that disclosures become such a big thing in the media and with our government? It's very odd that all of a sudden it's coming out now.
Right. Well, I think there's multiple factors. One is I think the Rokfin may be ready to make some moves, in fulfillment of Enochian prophecy. And they know what time it is. And maybe just trying to get ahead of, put their spin on it and get ahead of it. When we look at the Disclosure Project with Dr. Stephen Greer, and particularly what Dr. Carol Rosin shared, where she said the script building up from the Cold War to the false flag alien invasion. She said there were going to be a series of enemies, the first being the Russians, then it was going to be terrorists, then it was going to be rogue nations, then it was going to be asteroids. So we're at this asteroid part in the script now, because like every other day, an asteroid is making the news, right? So we're at the asteroid point in the script. And she said, right after that, it's going to culminate in the false flag alien invasion, which will really, I would say, will correspond to inner Earth beings that have certain technology. They're going to be the ones we witness when, like, I guess you would say, that false flag alien invasion. And ultimately it's about them, when you read ancient prophecy, it's ultimately about these Nephilim, these fallen angels attempting to escape their judgment. That is a big part of Enoch, and the Rokfin are here to render that judgment. And we're kind of caught in the middle, That's what I was, I think that's the scenario we're witnessing, and how these key events are playing out as a part of this,
We definitely live in fascinating times. It's interesting to see what's going on. And Ross, thank you again for coming on. Looking forward to your presentation very much.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
I'm going to stick around for a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
Karen Holton, how are you today?
Works better if I unmute.
Yeah.
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course.
Good to see everybody.
Yes, you were a presenter at last year's conference. You'll be back again. So what do you have for us this year?
Well, the name of my presentation is Love, Sex, and Politics in Outer Space. And I think it's going to be really interesting. Last year, I talked a lot about the different aspects of how I got involved in the intergalactic resettlement program. And I sort of gave an overview. This time I'm going to zero in because contrary to what some of you might be thinking from the name of my talk, the community that I'm involved with is extremely spiritual. These beings are at our next stage of evolution. And the beings, basically, I'll just go back a little bit. I'm from a family of many generations of interdimensional and what we might want to call ET. You can sort of swap those two words back and forth. Contact. And I myself started having a lot of contact around 2013 to 2015. So the beings that I'm in contact with are not necessarily even within our galaxy. So you hear a lot of people talk about the Anunnaki, you hear people talk about the reptilians and the Pleiadians and things like that. Well, I don't know anything about any of those because the group that I'm involved with is intergalactic, and I'm not even sure if they're in the same dimension. It is a very difficult thing to put the concepts that I learn and the experiences that I have into common language, because our language has been constructed in such a way as to limit our thinking and limit our perceptions. So it's been very, very interesting. But the first thing I want to say is my presentation is not going to be anything to do with nuts and bolts. I have never been picked up by aliens in a spaceship and taken anywhere. That has never been my experience. I'm not saying that other people's experiences are true or not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that my experience has been quite different and very spiritual. So it started with me being taken at night while I was sleeping. And I started waking up in the middle of the night, realizing that I was in these conferences with these other beings. And then slowly I started to have these experiences where I was participating in intergalactic resettlement missions. And at first I thought I was dreaming or I was imagining it, but it was so consistent for a 3-month period. Every night I would go to sleep and I would have these adventures, and I'd wake up in the morning absolutely exhausted. And the other thing is there's a huge time differential. So our Earth time, I was, gone at night for a period of about 3 months, but my experience was very much like 3.5 years. It was much bigger than the time frame when I was having the experiences. So I found too that I didn't have a lot of recall. I didn't have a lot of memory. And then in 2017, my guides and my, I'm just going to call them ET friends, told me it was time to come out of the closet, because I wasn't really sharing a lot of this, because basically everybody just rolled up their eyes at me and thought it was cuckoo. And, you get tired of that after a while. And they said, it's time to go public. And so I started to become more public. And the more public I became, the more memories were unlocked and the more information I had to share. So even in the last year, I have a much better understanding of the culture and the ways of being and the ways of doing. And it's all centered around one specific big ship. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to say that these beings are at our next level of evolution. So they operate on the love harmonic. The universe, the multiverse, and even the omniverse operates very much on a love harmonic. Problem is, Earth people, up till today, we don't really even understand what love is. Love is a technology. And so I'm going to be getting into that. What is love? What do I mean by everything operating on the love harmonic? And how does that affect the culture, sex, and politics in outer space? So even sex is different. It's a technology. It is not all the reasons why people would become sexual on Earth. Reproduction is actually only one small facet. We have all kinds of reasons. We're looking for intimacy. We're looking for closeness. We're looking for all kinds of things, not to mention even addiction issues. It's a very different thing in outer space. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that. And then, of course, everything ties into politics, because everything we do is political. Every choice we make is political. The personal is political. And so I'm going to be giving a very different kind of presentation, offering you information that's never been out. And by the way, I'm actually working on my book. So I'm hoping I thought I would have it out by now. Ha, ha, ha. Boy, it's a lot of work to write a book. And so it'll be out probably in the next couple of months after the conference. And then I get into all the details on everything there. But basically, I just thought I would narrow it down. I wanted to throw, love is, I mean, no one has a problem with you talking about love. No, some people have a problem with you talking about politics, but a lot of people kind of are still very much in the closet when it comes to sex and sexual maturity and what that actually means and how that's actually a technology. And so I'm just going to be giving a very different point of view on all of that. This is not going to have anything to do with pornography or eroticism or anything like that. It's just a very factual, information-based talk. Anyway, I'm hoping that everyone will come to the conference and have lots of questions. And that's about all I want to say for today. But it's definitely different.
Awesome, Karen. We're looking forward to that. And we're also, Preston Dennett and I will have a roundtable about AT contact. So that's going to be super fun. I'm going to have some questions. The audience will have questions. So very much looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, Cory Hughes. Cory, how are you?
Excellent, thank you.
All right, what do you have for Forbidden Knowledge News?
All right, so last year I did the hijacking of America. It's available on a couple platforms, not on YouTube. It disappeared from there. But it is basically a complete telling overview of the Kennedy assassination. And I go as far as to name the shooters and a whole lot more information. This year, what I'm doing is I'm doing the hijacking of America Part 2. And it is going to fill in all the gaps that people have been wondering about for 50 years. There are very few questions that I have not been able to answer in the Kennedy assassination. Like the things that I'm researching in Kennedy, I'm the only person on the planet who knows to even be researching them. In a nutshell, and for a lot of Kennedy researchers, when they put out books or videos or whatever, they like to have like a whodunit, or, they kind of like build and then they kind of give you like the twist ending or whatever. And they're always wrong, which is hilarious to me. But it's not so much that I want to like have any kind of like surprise ending or anything like that. None of my research is secret. But it's more about explaining how I came to the conclusions that I came to and outlining various witness statements and pieces of evidence that basically will paint the entire narrative. So a lot of it's going to focus on Jack Valente. Jack Valente was the head of the MPAA for 40 years in Hollywood, and he controlled the global narrative for the most part through Hollywood and television. And he was the shooter on the grassy knoll, fundamentally. And he was born into two mob families, the DeGeorge family and the Valente family. There's a ton of obfuscation over the identity of his father. His father's name is Joseph Valente, but his father also used a bunch of aliases, just like he did. And when you start to study the Valente family, you find that there are Joseph Valentes and Jack Valentes in all the big mob cities. So it becomes really difficult because and then you start dealing with alias sharing. And it really becomes quite complicated. And so when you start to explain this kind of stuff to people, the one part of in Kennedy research that no one ever talks about is the underlying theories of spycraft, propaganda, psychological warfare, things like that. Because there were a lot of preparatory steps taken in the month leading up to the assassination, simply to provide plausible deniability for things that would occur after the assassination. It's really kind of crazy when you start to explain this to people, they don't believe you, right? But the CIA, that's what they do, right? They do all the body switching and all the body doubles. And there's there's at least 5 people in the Kennedy assassination who have a body double. Oswald had at least 7 people impersonating him over a 2-year period. So you have a lot of this crazy spycraft that interferes with people's ability to kind of put the pieces together. So basically this presentation is going to be me outlining what happened and the steps that I took this is how I came to these conclusions. Fundamentally, between this presentation and the last one that I did last year, it will be the complete story of the Kennedy assassination.
Now, yeah, I know you did overtime on last year's. You were like, probably was about a 4-hour presentation. Maybe looking at some overtime this year because the information you have, once you get going, it branches out in so many directions and it's so hard to cover everything. But I'm very much looking forward to it. You're also going to have your own roundtable for questions afterwards as well. So that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because a big part of what I'm going to present is a timeline, right? Starting in, like a month before the assassination. And then right at 12:30, when the shots are fired, I'm doing a timeline over the next couple of days leading up to when Oswald was shot by Jack Ruby. And I think between 12:30 and 12:35, just 5 minutes, I've already got like 50 slides just in that 5-minute time period. So a lot of things happened in a lot of different places. A lot of people got arrested. There were at least 20 to 25 arrests in and around Dealey Plaza directly connected to the assassination. They arrested a bunch of the shooters and let them all go. And, it's what happened in Dealey Plaza it was the most important event in world history, plain and simple. Like when you really come to understand it, it was like a turning point for the world. It was the day that the Zionists took over control of our army, and the world has never been the same since. And so everything going on today with coronavirus and every horrific event that's happened since Kennedy, 9/11, Oklahoma City, whatever, it's all being done by the same people. It's always the Zionists, and there's always a pretty damn clear trail that leads right back to Israel. And coronavirus is no different. So, but that's a whole nother story. I did a 4-hour coronavirus presentation too, if anybody wants to check that out.
All right. Awesome. We're very much looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Cory. Dean Henderson. Dean, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for it's good to meet all you guys and good stuff, man. So, my presentation is just the title of my last book. I've written 6 books. The last one's called Nephilim Crown 5G Apocalypse. And I spent my whole life just trying to figure out, for the last 35 years, really, like who runs this whole thing. And I got a master's degree, and I did a big thesis on like the big oil companies in the Middle East, and traced it to the banks that own the oil companies, traced to the bank holding companies that own the banks, and all this stuff. And this last book is really talking about the upper echelon, which are bloodline families, which so I'm going to give this timeline, this history, 8,000 years since the intervention in Samaria by the Nephilim, which is synonymous with the Anunnaki in my research, also synonymous with the Jinn, Archons, the Apache call them Wendigos, the Ojibwe call them Watikos, the Lakota, where I live, call them Witkos. And it all just means kind of crazy, psychotic, not human, not normal. And just to talk about how they pretty much it's a continuity of empire. So they moved different places. I won't get into that now, but ultimately they're lodged in the city of London under the Crown Corporation, and it's the royalty, it's the kings and queens who have different blood, Rh negative blood from us, literally our blue bloods. And how they shape the way we think and how they shape the way we live, pushed us out of being hunters and gatherers, which is how we're supposed to be living, which is how God meant us to live, and into agriculture, and then into the first and second and third, and now the fourth industrial revolution with the 5G, the vaccination regime, and then give connections between the companies who were involved with this and show how this is the crown. And show how this is what's going down. So I don't want to get into too much more today, but it's just it's a history, it's an alternative history, and how we've adopted ways of thinking and like evolutionary theory, germ theory, particle physics theory, and all these crazy things that came out of Chatham House, the Royal Societies, which tell us how to think, which tell us what we're supposed to, have these preconceptions about, when in fact we're supposed to live in the now, we're supposed to observe, we're supposed to learn that way, not by having these preconceptions that were hammered into us. And it comes down to, it's just enslavement. I mean, we live on a prison planet for 8,000 years. And so we got to get right on that. And we got to, my job has always been to just expose the powers that be, who's behind all this. So we'll get into the names of the bloodlines, we'll get into the different tentacles and the sort of the pyramid structure of the thing, and how it all kind of plays out. So looking forward to it. I'll be pretty brief right now, but glad to meet all you guys, and thanks for all the work you do.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. Looking forward to that too. And it's getting hard to get information like you're going to be presenting out because of all the censorship. You lost your website a while back. You don't have an online presence because of this. We're losing ground online, just because of the censorship. So I think it's really important to get your information out, especially because it's not getting out anywhere else.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's all coming down. The censorship's going to get worse, and that's part of the thing. But we just yeah, but that's right. And then part of the reason is I realize the internet itself is a weapon system, and so I really limit my time on the internet, and I recommend everybody do the same. Go live in the real world. Go take a hike in the mountains. Get back to nature, because it's all about taking us away from nature ultimately and making us artificial intelligence. To me, AI, aliens, it's synonymous. There's no difference between those concepts. See, and so this really is the final sort of assimilation that the Nephilim want to assimilate us into their cult of artificial intelligence, artificial everything, artificial food, artificial, doctoring our water, doctoring everything. And now this vaccination thing, which is now technology and literally changing your DNA and changing the essence of you as a human being. So it's the end game. And so yeah, we'll get into all that, but yeah. Thanks.
All right. Well, looking forward to it, Dean. Thank you for coming on and sharing with us today.
Yeah, right on.
All right, Jared Murphy. Finally, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Welcome. So, what have you got for us?
Well, thanks. It's nice to meet everybody. Haven't met anybody actually on the screen, so this is fun. I'm looking forward to doing this. It sounds like everything's really interesting and going to be great. So, it drives me a little nuts to constantly hear how we're getting censored, like Dr. Seuss. And so, Dean, I feel for you. And I think we have some platforms. I also co-host Conflict Radio that has over 53,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you on sometime, Dean. So I think there's realms that we can discuss that don't get us banned, but at the same time, it's who would have thought we would have all actually, if we can't have flying cars by our age, at least we have a dystopian sci-fi novel that we're all in, right? Woo! We're all movie stars. Yes. So yeah, and Jim, I'm looking forward to our conference on Saturday. I think that's Saturday, right, Chris? Yeah. What time are we doing that?
I'm not even quite sure. Chris, what time is the conference on Saturday?
He's looking. So my publisher is Olaf Phillips, and I'll do that while he's looking. But I wrote a book called "It's Not Aliens, Worse It's Us: Discovering Our Lost History." And
that is Saturday, by the way.
Yes. But the question was, what time are we?
1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time.
All right. So that's good to know. But yeah, so I was in Africa last year, so I do field research, and of course I climb. I've been into a large area of the esoteric world, but my book's premise was originally not going to be what it was. What it turned into was found something called terra preta, which some people are familiar with. It's an engineered ancient soil. It has a lot of weird properties, and it's found in Brazil at first, and it has piezoelectric properties. It self-replicates, which a professor in Kansas is looking at and trying to sort out. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. Not only is terra preta in Brazil, it's in North Africa, it's in Australia. We're going to get a little more into why that's significant, why when everyone's looking for sexy mummies and jewelry, that if you have a similar building and construction methodology around the world, like polygonal construction and earthquake remediation, but also other wave and frequency technology, and most importantly, what does the implications of having an engineered soil all around the earth mean? Especially when it's in areas that we're supposed to be nomadic, and in areas where we can account for some polygonal masonry And then we have stone spheres all over the world, but we're missing the constructions. We're missing the buildings, because we're going to talk about metamaterials, and we're going to talk about seismic metamaterials and nanoarchaeology. We're going to talk a little bit about how that plays into reactivating maybe what are ancient lost technologies genetically. Like I'm a practitioner of Wim Hof. I got to meet him in San Fran the first time he came to America, me and 100-something other people. So I practice reactivating my conscious control of your immune system, your vagus nerve, your being able to heat and cool yourself, being able to control your inflammatory response. I think those are all related, as Wim talks about, to prior lost higher technology functions of what is now a human race, and basically a globe in safe mode, a lot like a computer. We're in safe mode. So we have a lot of contemporary mythologies and things that all mix together to kind of blur what was once what appears to be a highly terraformed planet. And so we're, we've been talking about this a little bit on Forbidden, and we are certainly going to expand on that. And for this conference, I will be speaking, for any of those that have not participated, more into the details of what it means to have an engineered soil that's not just for growing, for the richest growing soil on the planet, but for why have piezoelectric properties, and then why have piezoelectric electronic switching going on at the cellular level. So we're going to somehow go from dirt, not sexy mummy finding, with dirt, and then we're going to go all the way around the world to kind of account for the implications of a worldwide lost society that spanned beyond Göbekli Tepe and beyond that time period, in a primitive adaptation of those constructions to what appears to be a much more highly advanced human race, which the premise of my book concludes that what we see as aliens on this planet are likely advanced humans that have been here and have never stopped being here after surviving multiple catastrophes.
Awesome. Yeah. That's going to be awesome. Last time you were on, when we were discussing possible, DNA regeneration, these abilities that we have, man, my mind was just, and the audience loved it as well. So we're really,
it's going to be fun. This is going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. And everyone, thank you for coming today. Thank you for talking about your presentations. And we are very much looking forward to seeing you in April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th for Forbidden Knowledge News Con. So thank you all for coming on, guys, and we will see you then.